You fill a backpack up with gear, you put it on your back, you get to walking. That's generally how a backpacking trip starts. Now, when we are out on trail, one of the most important things is comfort and making sure we are having the best time possible. So in today's video, we are going to go over 5 ridiculously simple things that you could be doing to improve your next backpacking trip. Now, if you guys are new here and you've never seen my channel before, my name is Matt. Welcome to Matty Outdoors. All we talk about here is hiking and backpacking, and I love passing on tips and tricks to you guys to help you guys make your backpacking trips better and your trail experience a lot better. So if you have not already, consider clicking on the subscribe button. It really helps out the channel. But like I said in today's video, we are talking 5 ridiculously easy tips to improve your next backpacking trip, starting with tip number 1. And tip number 1 is snacking. Freaking love cashews. One of my absolute favorite trail snacks. Really high in fats, great for energy, just great to kind of keep you going throughout the day. And that leads into our tip, which is continually snacking throughout the day. Now, I see a lot of people make the mistake out on trail of just having, a breakfast and then stopping and having a big lunch and then not eating anything throughout the day until they have dinner. And when you're out on a backpacking trip, just keeping yourself continually fueled up is really, really important, especially if you're trying to do trips with those bigger miles. So for myself personally, throughout the day, I just continually keep snacks kind of going into my body. I always keep my cashews handy, or some beef jerky, or some M&Ms, or a granola bar, just anything that I can keep, really, really easily accessible and handy. If you've got hip belt pockets on your pack, that's a great place to store snacks. As you're hiking throughout the day, just constantly try and keep yourself munching on things. It's just going to help keep your body fueled up, and it's going to help avoid that midday crash. It's going to help lessen the amount of fatigue you're going to feel at the end of the day, because your body's just going to continually have fuel pumping into it, because you're going to be continually exerting calories as you're out hiking and trekking along. Tip number 2 is all about hydration, and it is not about crushing the vanilla Coke with coffee, but if you guys have not tried it, these things are freaking delicious. So you come up to a water source, you stop, you pull out your filter, you start filling up your water bottles or your water bladder or whatever it is you're using to carry water throughout the day. Something you can do when you're filling up water that can help cut weight out of your pack and give yourself a little bit more comfort as you're hiking along. Camel Up. Now when I say Camel Up, fill up a bottle and just crush it. Drink a liter of water, or, drink as much water as you can at the time. Remember, every liter of water is 2.2 pounds. So the more you Camel Up and the less water you're physically carrying, the less strain on your back as you're hiking. For tip number 3, we are going to stick with hydration, and this is a little bit of a comfort item when it comes to hydration out there in the backcountry, and that is drink mixes. Now, like I said, this is far from a necessity. This is 100% a luxury, although it does give you a little bit of extra calories and some salts and probably some vitamins and whatnot. I know a lot of people like bringing these Kool-Aids or the little Mio squirts. These things are great. They add a ton of extra flavor. I know you can get the Mio squirts with added electrolytes. The biggest advice I can give you if you're carrying these little squirt packets is keep them inside a Ziploc bag inside your pack. I have seen a couple friends have these burst inside their food bags, and it makes a ridiculous mess and just gets all over everything. My personal preferred method of, kind of spicing up a drink and adding a little bit of flavor to my drinks at night are these little kind of drink packets here. These little Crystal Lights are my go-to, but every now and then I like, mixing it up, and I've got these little A&W root beer flavored ones. Actually, surprisingly not bad. You just tear the tops off one of these, pour it in your liter of water or whatever you're drinking for water. And like I said, 100% a comfort item, but it can improve your backpacking trip and make life that much better. Tip number 4 has to do with our sleep system. A big mistake I see people making when they're out there on trail is you get to camp, you get your shelter set up, and they'll just, toss their sleeping bag and their pillow and sleeping pad and all that stuff in their tent, and they'll just, leave it in the stuff sacks, and then they'll deal with it when they go to bed. Now, the best thing you can do when you get to camp is, first get your shelter set up. That way, if weather comes in or whatever, you've got a nice dry place to go and hang out. After getting your shelter set up, the next thing you should be doing is, get your sleeping pad laid out, get it semi-inflated or whatever, but get your sleeping bag or your top quilt out, pull it out of its stuff sack or pull it out of your pack or however you're storing it, and let it loft up. The more time your sleeping bag or quilt has to loft up, the better it's going to serve you when you crawl in at night. Sleeping bags and quilts keep you warm based on, the amount of loft they're able to attain, and just giving your sleeping bag or your quilt a little bit more time to loft up. You know, I mean, giving it a couple hours to loft up, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Give your quilt or sleeping bag enough time to loft up and you will go to bed very warm. Tip number 5 has to do with when we are off trail and we have gotten back home. Something that I suggest everybody do prior to starting a backpacking trip is make up a little gear list, you know, whether you use the lighter pack list or just, you know, a little checklist of all the gear you're going to throw into your pack, and, you know, just kind of having that physical list that you can look at and helps you look through and make sure you're not missing any gear before your backpacking trip. But where this helps you after your backpacking trip is going through that list of gear and just making little mental notes, or even, you know, like putting a physical tick on there of any gear that you didn't use on that backpacking trip. And where this can really help you out and help you save a lot of weight is for your following backpacking trip, looking back at that list and deciding, hey, these are the pieces of gear that I never touched out of my backpack on my last trip. And do I actually need to carry that on this trip? Now, I personally did this a couple years ago, and this is one of the first things that I did when it came to, you know, cutting weight out of my backpack. And the very first gear purge that I did for gear that I was carrying that I never used honestly saved me 7.5 pounds. So this stuff cut down a lot of weight and a lot of bulk out of my backpack. With that in mind, you know, if you don't use your first aid kit, obviously that is a fantastic thing, but don't negate bringing your first aid kit on your next trip. You know, if it's a piece of gear that could be, you know, life-saving, you know, like a first aid kit. I mean, it may not be a life-saving first aid kit, but first aid kit is something really important. Don't eliminate that from your kit. I know I told you guys I had 5 tips for you, but I actually have 6. Now, the bonus tip for you guys today is finding a video in this playlist right here full of hiking and backpacking tips. I'm sure you guys will find someone in there you enjoy. As always, I am Matty. Thank you so dang much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.